Now, connective tissue is the most diverse and abundant of the primary tissues. Connective tissue is present in varying amounts in just about every organ of the body. There are four main classes of connective tissue. Though its name would suggest that the primary responsibility is to somehow co-join body parts, its functions go well beyond that. The functions of connective tissue include binding and support, protecting, insulating, storing potential energy, and transporting substances within the body. These functions are evident when the four main classes of connective tissue are revealed. They include the large class of connective tissue called connective tissue proper, which includes adipose tissue, fat tissues, ligaments, and tendons. The other classes include cartilage, bone, and blood. Like epithelium, connective tissue has special characteristics that distinguishes it from other tissues. All connective tissue is derived from the same embryonic tissue known as mesenchyme. Whereas epithelium is avascular, connective tissue presents with a varying degree of vascularity, from avascular cartilage to well-vascularized bone. Interestingly, connective tissue is the only tissue of the body that is not primarily made up of cells. Instead, connective tissue is made up of primarily a non-living material, and embedded within the material are cells and fibers. So let's try to examine how a connective tissue may be formed. Imagine a group of cells in a particular area. Some of these cells begin to secrete a material known as ground substance, while other cells assemble and release protein fibers. Other cells in the area carry out their functions producing proteins, storing energy, etc. Ground substance includes a variety of substances that include protein cell adhesives that cause cells to stick to the elements of the ground substance, and proteoglycans, which provide the ground substance with its varying viscosity or thickness. Cells continue to make ground substance, which diffuses throughout the area and ultimately traps the other cells and fibers, forming the connective tissue. Therefore, all connective tissue includes relatively widely dispersed cells, fibers, and ground substance. Another way to think of connective tissue is as a bowl of jello with fruit. The jello is analogous to the ground substance, and the fruit is analogous to the cells that produce the fibers and other substances. Connective tissue presents with three basic fibers. Most connective tissue contains all three fiber types, but rarely in the same percentage. In other words, some tissues will have more of one fiber type than the other. The three fiber types are collagen, elastic, and reticular. Collagen fibers are primarily made up of a protein called collagen. Collagen is an extremely strong substance. Collagen fibers have significant tensile strength. In fact, if you simultaneously try to pull apart a same diameter fiber of steel and collagen, the steel would break before the collagen. Elastic fibers are primarily made from the protein elastin. Elastic fibers have elasticity, meaning that they tend to recoil after being stretched. Connective tissue high in elastic fibers is found in organs where elasticity is needed, such as the skin, lungs, bladder, and blood vessels. Reticular fibers are short, fine fibers made up of collagen with a slightly different chemical makeup than the normal collagen fibers. These fibers are often continuous with collagen fibers. They branch into network of fibers that surround blood vessels and support the soft tissue of organs. Connective tissues contain primary types of cells that are responsible for the production of the matrix and fibers. Cartilage is formed by chondroblasts, bone by osteoblasts, and connective tissue proper by fibroblasts. Once the blast cells have synthesized the matrix, they mature into less active cells known as site cells, that is, chondrocytes, osteocytes, fibrocytes. These site cells play a significant role in monitoring the health of the matrix by chemically influencing other cells within the tissue. However, if the matrix is damaged, some site cells can quickly revert to blast cells and begin to produce ground substance and fibers again to participate in the repair of the tissue. There are several types of connective tissue. Connective tissue proper is named by the relative density, orientation, or physical properties. As we progress through this course, we will discuss the individual properties of the various connective tissue types, and consistent with the principle of complementarity, associate the properties with the function of the tissues. This is a micrograph of a section of the esophagus, the tubular pathway that leads to the stomach. Note the clear difference in the two types of tissue present. The darker stained tissue is clearly epithelial tissue. If you look closely, you can discern that it is indeed stratified squamous epithelial. The density of the cells cause for increased uptake of the stain and hence the darker color. Further note how the epithelial cells seem to be more dense towards the basal layers. This is indicative of the highly mitotic cells in these regions. Since epithelium is always attached to connective tissue, you know what the underlying tissue is. Notice how the connective tissue stains much lighter. This is because the cells are much more spread out. Although the fibers are not discernible at this magnification, we know that this tissue includes cells, fibers, and ground substance. The connective tissue displayed here is considered loose connective tissue. Membranes are simple organs. As you may recall, an organ consists of at least two tissues that are joined to perform a common function. Membranes cover body surfaces or line body cavities. They are made up of epithelial and connective tissues. There are three types of membranes: cutaneous, mucous, and serous. The skin is the cutaneous membrane. It consists of a stratified epithelial layer known as the epidermis, firmly attached to a thick connective tissue layer known as the dermis. The cutaneous membrane is exposed to the air and is considered a dry membrane. We will explore this important organ in much more detail very soon. Mucous membranes are wet membranes. They line body cavities that open to the external environment, including the nose, mouth, digestive tract, eyes, and the genital urinary tracts. Mucous membrane epithelium is often stratified squamous or simple columnar attached to loose connective tissue. Serous membranes line closed body cavities like the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. Serous membranes line the body cavity and then fold on itself and lines the exterior surface of all organs within the cavity. The part of the membrane that lines the cavity is called the parietal serosa, and the portion that lines the external surface of the organs is called the visceral serosa. A serous fluid is produced between the two serosae. That provides for friction-reduced motion as organs or parts of organs move or rub against each other. Given the role of connective tissue and epithelial tissue, they are both subject to damage. Further, given humans' extensive interaction with the environment and the dynamics of disease processes, tissues of the body are at risk for damage. However, the body does indeed have the ability to repair damage. Tissues repair by one of two processes, regeneration or fibrosis. In regeneration, damaged or destroyed tissue is replaced by the same kind of tissue. Epithelial tissue heals by regeneration. Bone, a connective tissue, also heals by regeneration. When we fracture a bone, new bone is formed to repair the fracture. In fibrosis, damaged tissue is repaired or replaced by a proliferation of collagen-based connective tissue or fibers known as scar tissue. Most connective tissue, but not all, heals by the process of fibrosis.